So welcome to everybody who's come along tonight. Hopefully some of you have come before. You might have been with us last month when we met Javier and Chema from over in Rioja, or the time before that where we were in Chile with Viviana. Tonight we're going to the Languedoc in the south of France and with Jean-Claude Mas and Ellen, who will be joining us shortly. The Languedoc makes more wine than the whole of Australia. And although 2/3 of that production is red wine, we're actually going to be talking about two white wines tonight, one of which is made from a grape that nearly went extinct in the 1980s. So hopefully lots of interesting things for you to learn tonight from Jean-Claude. We've been working with Jean-Claude and Paul Mas since 2013, I think, so quite a long time. And he wanted to show you a little motorbike tour with his very beautiful and rather old motorbike, just to give you a bit of a feeling of the vineyards before he starts to talk to you about the wines. So I'm just going to ask Ellen to start us off with sharing a video, so hopefully you can get a bit of a sense of the place we're talking about. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to comment a bit the video because it's only music, so I will need to explain you a bit what it's about. So here's where everything started, the family house in Pézenas, where I was born, baptized, married, where all my life basically was, until I left when I was 18, and to come back when I was 35. So we're traveling down to the Roussillon, nearby the Canigou, towards Spain. The Roussillon is where we have the Côte du Roussillon appellation at Château Loriga. Typical architecture of the Roussillon, this type of building with its red stones. We make rich wines, rich red wines, but we make also fortified wine there that are quite incredible. Then we move back to the north across the hill of the Fitou to reach Corbière. Here we're in Château Jérémy. It was elected one of the top 100 wine in the world in America this year. Carignan is the king of the area. Carignan are the great grapes. Then we move across the hill of the Alaric to Château Martinol, the cradle of the bubbles back in 1531, where we're making mainly sparkling wine. All the grapes are hand-picked in this estate. Then we move to the west of Limoux, where we have Château Terramasastruc. That's our biggest winery. And that's where we bottle most of the wine. I will show you the bottling of today's Viognier, of course, irresistible Viognier. Let's move a bit further north to the Minervois, Château Villegley. Incredible location with cellars that are over 100 years old, made with incredible architecture. Famous for the Syrah, the Grenache, and the Vermentino today. And down to a unique place nearby Carcassonne, the town of Marseillette. It's a dry lake. I would call it Languedocian Veneto. It looks like a bit Italy, where we grow 18 different grape varieties. We flood the vineyard to keep the salt down, to prevent to damage the vines. Now we are the east, nearby the Rhône, in the Costière de Nîmes. Back more toward the west, at Château Cricard, Terrasse du Larzac, the wise man Châteauneuf-du-Pape. As you can see, the soil is incredible. And as you can also see that we grow our vineyard organically without any chemicals. Then we go a bit south, we go to the Grès de Montpellier appellation. This is a beautiful hill overlooking on one side the Mediterranean Sea and on the other side the Hérault Valley. And then back next to where I live, Chateau Mas, very typical area, not too far from the sea, with black clay soil that would make it unique. And then we arrive in my kitchen, which I built in 2018, which is Clorastelia. This is where I make my, let's say, Grand Cru wine. Astelia means Astrid, Elisa, Apolline, Esther. It's a compilation of these names.
That's great. Now, hopefully everybody wants to go on holiday there, but also it gives you an idea of how complicated the whole region is and how there's just so many different grape varieties and just different sub-regions and appellations that make it so wonderful. I think, Jean-Claude, you wanted to show one of the video, which is from the bottling line this morning.
I would like to small comment that just to comment about the video. The video
Sure.
was aimed to show you the diversity of the Languedoc. Languedoc is not one region. It's actually probably over, I would say, 5 main wine regions, because we have 5 main valleys. The Agly Valley on the south, a bit further north, the Aude Valley, a bit further north, the Aube Valley, a bit further north, the Hérault Valley, and a bit further north, the Gardon Valley. And that creates ecosystem, microclimates, quite different each other, because also they are different soil. And that comes from the fact that we are squeezed between the Alps, the Massif Central, the Pyrenees, and the sea. This is what makes it unique. Just to give you an anecdote, I have a Viognier planted on 1 mile deep of dinosaur eggs. This is totally incredible. This is what makes the Languedoc. Obviously, this place where the dinosaur eggs are, millions years was not here, was in the Ecuador. So it's a movement of the earth, of the plates, that basically has created this system. So it's you know, you won't be surprised if I tell you it's the most beautiful region in the world with the best history and the deeper history. And that's probably true in the modern age. So this is why, I mean, the Languedoc is quite unique. So now I'm going to show you, I don't know if anybody of you have seen a bottling line, but I was on a bottling line this morning for different reasons, not for this one. But it happened that we're bottling the Viognier of Corp, irresistible Viognier, which I have here, which is hot from the oven. I show you how we bottle a wine. I mean, it's not that romantic, but it's good to know.
Are you able to share it, Ellen? Yeah, Jean-Claude thought that a lot of people might not see the inner workings, so hopefully this is not quite as romantic as a bike ride through the vineyards.
But that's what it takes to bottle
it is
in
reality,
perfect condition.
exactly, it's what it takes.
It's very important to bottle it in perfect condition.
You can see it correct, right?
Yeah.
Just noise. Huh? Here we're filling the bottles. There are 36 fillers. Here we're closing the bottle with a screw cap. Here we're labeling. That's how it works. So it's always interesting to know how that works. Keep in mind that back many years ago, it was done by hand. But that's much better because that's bottle under vacuum, protection of oxygen, until here. The screw cap make perfect sealing. And then the labeling is quite technique. You have to realize that there are 8,000 bottles per hour being produced. 8,000 bottles per hour. This is not huge compared to big negotiations, but it's quite a lot. 8,000 bottles an hour. So meaning we fill a full truck in 2 hours.
Thank you very much. So Jean-Claude, before you share your slides, because I think Jean-Claude's going to show you a bit more about the wines and explain the history of the winery, just a couple of things for everybody on the call. So if you've got questions for Jean-Claude as you go, if you post them in the Q&A, we'll answer some as we go if it's something that he's talking about at the time, but we'll have time at the end as well to answer questions. So feel free to ask him any questions you like in the Q&A. Also, just to say that there is the opportunity for anybody attending tonight to win one of each of the bottles of wine that we're talking about this evening. So that's the Irresistible Viognier, Irresistible Marsanne, and the Irresistible Languedoc Red. So stick around to the end and hopefully you might be the lucky winner of 3 bottles of wine. So thank you very much, Jean-Claude, if you're ready to share your slides.
Okay, I'm ready to share.
Right. And don't worry if you're panicking and thinking that's the wrong wine, because this is a wine that they also make for us and we sell at Co-op that Jean-Claude wanted to mention as well. We'll come on to that.
Okay, ready to share. I just want to put the full screen on. Here we are. Okay, so that's the first wine that I'm going to show you today. Marsanne. Marsanne is a grape variety typical from the southern France, typical from the southern Rhone. It's quite an ancient grape that had been used in many northern Rhone blends, but in Languedoc it was never that popular. And by being able to grow Marsanne on actually 2 main different soils, the very high limestone soil on the hillside and some deeper soil, by playing with the maturity, we have managed to achieve a style of Marsanne that managed to blend the fruit and the floral. Marsanne naturally is very floral toward herbaceous with low acidity. But playing with the type of maturity and the origin of the grape and the soil, we managed to achieve a Marsanne that shows some fruit, probably towards tropical character, together with the floral, with a well-balanced mouth to give to keep some freshness and not to be too heavy on the tongue. We play a bit with the oak. Part of it is fermented in big barrels on oak. We play a bit with malolactic to give some complexity to the wine, and that gives the irresistible Marsanne. So as you have seen from our vineyards, from the video, we have vineyards located across the whole of the Languedoc. We grow 46 different grape varieties. And in the past 25 years, basically, I've learned where the best articulation between the soil and the varietal and the vine and the rootstock. I've learned how to make this adequation the best possible. So I've acquired vineyards, which today enable me to manage and control vineyards that give me style and consistency, because that's very important. In the Languedoc, considering that we're a Mediterranean climate, consistency is easier than in any other region in the world. Some regions are too dry, some regions are too wet, some regions are too cold. But the Languedoc has got a Mediterranean climate that's quite balanced. We tend to have cold winter with very cold nights, sunny, not too much water. Languedoc is happy with 500 millimeters of water. So I don't know in London how much you get water, but probably 2 or 3 meters of water. So it's a dry climate, and the vines, are adapted to dry climate. Many people are complaining about drought, but the vines are designed to be in dry climate.
It's probably just one question we've had, Jean-Claude, is are these wines all in co-op? They are. So the Irresistible Viognier, Irresistible Marsanne, and Irresistible Languedoc Rouge, they're all in co-op, as are the other two wines that I mentioned that I think Jean-Claude will also want to include because he makes them for us. So we also have a Chardonnay and a Picpoul, which Jean-Claude makes, but they're all available in co-op. They're not necessarily in all stores. So Terry is going to post links to store lists. So if you weren't able to find any of the wines for this evening, you feel free to look at those at the end. And in terms of Marsanne, I guess it might be a new grape for those of you who've got it there or who are trying it this evening. I don't know if any of you have tried it for the first time and you have any thoughts on what you think to it. They're growing quite a bit now in Australia as well, and it's quite a different style. But this is, I think, if you put off white wine because you find them too acidic, it's actually quite a nice, generous, broad wine. And as Jean-Claude said, with using a little bit of oak, it just gives it a little bit of weight and richness. So it's perhaps a softer white for people that maybe find some whites too sharp. So hopefully some of you have tried it and liked it this evening. And Jean-Claude, we always get asked, and nobody's asked yet, because maybe they're still feeling too shy, but what you like to eat with the wines, so your opinion of what you would enjoy for food with the Marsanne.
The Marsanne, typically, I would take broiled scallops. I would take turbot. I would take, this white fish that have a bit of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
That's typical. Then a cheese, a fresh cheese. Maybe not a goat cheese, but more like a ewe milk cheese or cow milk, not so strong as goat. What else could I drink it with? Yeah, white meat, not sure. I will stick to fish and some scallops.
Sounds good. And we've also had a question about...
Yeah. Spaghetti with scallops, plain
spaghetti with scallops.
A bit of scallops, a bit of pepper, so that it matches well the style of the Marsanne, which is Marsanne has got a bit of pepper.
Sounds delicious. We had a question actually, which is interesting to comment on Marsanne about whether you like to blend them. Now, obviously, if you go further north into the Rhône, Marsanne is often blended with Roussanne. If you get white Rhône wines, but this is here it's 100% Marsanne. So I don't, Jean-Claude, if you prefer to work with Marsanne just 100% on its own, or if you like blending it.
I'm going to tell you a small secret. Never believe winemakers. If I tell you it's 100% Marsanne, don't believe it. We're allowed in any wine to blend 15% of other varieties. I grow 46 different grade varieties. And the style Jean-Claude Mas is basically based on this ability to be able to give this touch to any single variety that nobody can do. I have access to Riesling, I have access to Gewürztraminer, I have access to a Pinot Grigio, then, 46 different grape varieties. So always I give a touch to my Marsanne, depending on the year, of something a bit to make it a bit special. This year is very special. Right now, the first nose was really much a kind of tropical fruit with some spiciness, which is make it unique. Not cinnamon, but soft spices. Think about soft spices. I'm not a sommelier, so don't wait for me to comment with incredible things about the wine. I work on wine with intuition, and I do what I like, and obviously I like what is good. So coming back to blending, Marsanne, obviously it's a very good blending material. I do a Marsanne Roussanne. I put some Marsanne in many of my blends, like AOP Languedoc. Obviously, it's a perfect play of blending. But blending a blended wine is a different story of a single vineyard wine for two reasons. We are talking about price points below 10 pounds. People need to be able to relate something. If we go too complicated in blending, in appellation, it can become a bit frightening. So for me, the single varietal, an entry to the understanding of the wine world. But for sure, the top of the top in a wine is blending. Blending is an art. Blending, it's a bit like you have painters that paint all white or all black, but so be it. So you like them, but you have painters that do a lot of colors and do colorful paintings. So that's more of my philosophy. So blending is the next level of understanding wine, and the next level of, you know, having another experience. Wine, like Marsanne today, is a very good approach to a wine that we have tried to make special by our origin of grapes, of the Marsanne, the twist that I add from other varietal. That's one experience. And then, obviously, you can get into a more complex world, which is a blending art. Yes, definitively.
So Richard, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's why Jean-Claude refers to the winery as the kitchen.
So maybe you want to know what he blend well. Obviously, Marsanne blend perfectly well with Roussanne. They're very complementary. Add a touch of Viognier, you create complexity. Add a touch of very small of Grenache Gris, and you have something different. Add a touch of Vermentino, and you have something even more complex, etc., etc. And you want to play it differently. Use a bit of Sauvignon, a bit Chardonnay in your Marsanne, and you will see create an incredible wine. But no appellation allowed to do it. But I do it from time to time.
Great, thank you. We have one final question. I'll let you move on from Marsanne, but from Peter about who did the artwork on the label. Now, Jean-Claude is very artistic and very modest as well. So I know I've seen some of his drawings before. So I think the idea was to convey the artistry and how passionate he is about art, but also we wanted to do a funky wine label. So at Co-op we work with a design agency and sort of just talk to them about who we want the wine to appeal to, what's the story of the wine, has it got any the people that might want to buy it. And we decided there's a lot of stuffy, boring wine labels, particularly of French wine. So this was a bit out there. I guess some of you will hate it and some of you will love it. But we wanted to be bold and say, well, this is something a bit different, so it should have a label that's a bit different, it's a bit fun, and hopefully it might persuade some people to pick it up and try it.
We become a collector. This year is painting. Next year it will be another painting. Next year after it will be another painting. And you know who did that very well?
Exactly.
You know who did? Chateau Margaux.
Yeah.
Chateau Mouton, pardon, sorry.
Mouton, yeah. I'll let you, interrupting you too much, Jean-Claude, I'll let you carry on and talk about the next wine. Thank you. Next wine, big discovery. Viognier. We've become in the past 20 years a reference in Viognier. If I tell you our Viognier is the most sold wine in France, it means something. Viognier historically comes from a very tiny appellation, Condrieu, with the smallest appellation in the world called Chateau Grillé. Viognier has been always a very, very elitist grape. I think in UK you cannot find a Viognier probably below 30 pounds from Condrieu. So my father, that was quite, he was from the old school, like the old variety of the Languedoc, planted Viognier 30 years ago. So I inherited one Viognier vineyard. And this Viognier vineyard gave wine that were incredible. One day, because I had another small plot of Chardonnay, I decided to blend it with Chardonnay, and I created the Chardonnay Viognier. The Chardonnay Viognier was my first white wine. That was a blend that I did in 1998. I was not that much of a winemaker. I didn't know much about wine, I didn't learn wine, so I learned by experience. But it was the first wine, and it became a landmark. Based on that experience, I understood that Viognier was incredible, so I planted a lot of Viognier. I encouraged the grower I worked with to plant Viognier. And today, we probably represent 25% of the production of Viognier in the Languedoc, and probably in France 20%, because the Languedoc is where most of the Viognier are produced today. So I've created a style of Viognier. I like Condrieu, but not that much. I wanted to create my own style. I discovered that across the vineyard that you have seen, for example, the one which is flooded, it creates Viognier that have a gooseberry character
They don't go so high in alcohol, keep a very nice acidity and with a great salinity also because of the saltiness of the wine, so savory. I decided to use this Viognier a bit partly for malolactic, a bit of oak, and that was one of the blending material. Second part, the Viognier historically where my father planted, it's on soil basically of limestone soil, dominant limestone, more like white soil. He created Viognier that has a peachy character, peach that turn to apricot when they age. And then the stony soil that you have seen, for example, in Curica, where I call the Wiseman Châteauneuf du Pape, create Viognier very heavy, very rich, very high in alcohol, 15%. So based on that experience, I started to blend these three origins, and I created my style of Viognier. And what you have here as a resistible Viognier is a typical example of what I do as my, let's say, everyday Viognier. Wine, very consensual, I would say.
Yep, I always think of peaches and cream with this wine. And as Jean-Claude says, you can buy it in other regions and you won't get it for less than £30 a bottle. So £8, it's a bit of a bargain. It might be worth explaining some of the terms on this slide are a little bit techy. So but just to explain a little bit, so the purpose, for example, of skin maceration. So if you have an aromatic grape variety like Viognier, that's leaving the skins in contact with the must a little bit longer, so you're not pressing it straight away, and that can help extract some of those more aromatic compounds in the wine. So that's why he's included that there. In terms of malolactic fermentation as well, I know that sounds a bit of a mouthful. Wine has something called malic acid in, and that's what you find in a green apple. So if you bite a green apple, it's that sort of tangy acidity. And you can do something where you use a sort of special friendly bacteria to create a malolactic fermentation to convert that malic acid. So you get rid of that sort of more of the crispness to make a creamy character in the wine. And when Jean-Claude's saying here that 20% of that wine has malolactic fermentation, it's some of it has undergone that process, so it has a more creamy texture, but not all of it. So he wanted to keep some of the crispness, and I think hopefully you agree it's got a nice balance. It's not Viognier can sometimes be a bit fat and a bit flat, but here it's a nice balance.
A bit soapy.
Yeah, a bit soapy, yeah. But here is a balance of using some of that component, some of malolactic fermentation to give some creaminess, but just for 20% of the blend, and the rest has still got that malic freshness, so it doesn't get too flabby. And again, you've got a portion in oak, so you can the new oak, so you can pick out some of the oak character, that sort of vanilla spice on the wine, and it just gives it that complexity. I think it's excellent value for.
And the beauty of this wine, keep it 2 years, taste it. Keep it 5 years, taste it again. Keep it 10 years, taste it again. You will be amazed. They build up so incredibly. They develop like a flower, you know. Right now it's at the stage of nice bud, nice small flower bud. Keep it for 1.5 years, you start to see the petals, and they explode. We have such an experience with aging Viognier, which is incredible. I was in Hong Kong tasting at famous restaurants, and you had to prepare a dish, and you had to prepare a dish again with it was a local fish. It was not like a sea bass, you know, the fish they use for ceviche. Famous, it's called corvina in Latin America, but I don't remember in other languages. And the Viognier matches so well the kind of ceviche he had done with this, and it was incredible. It was incredible, and it was a Viognier 5 years old. No sign of aging. Green, the color was green, but explosion. And frankly speaking, it's really a wine that create really emotion when it's made properly.
So there you go, try it with ceviche. I like it with like something with a bit of spice, like a green Thai curry or Mexican, or something that has some spice and aroma. A tagine would work really well, where you've got something fruity but a bit of spice, and then it's just got that generosity of fruit to really balance it out. Right. I've just got another question for you, Jean-Claude, from Sue, asking what makes it a good year for wine? Terroir, sun, water, blending? What makes you think, oh, 2024 has been a great year, or 2019, fantastic year? What's a good year for you?
A good year is when the vines are beautiful, when the vines are showing health, not too much pressure from diseases. They don't show sign of overstress. They are well balanced in terms of grapes, not too much, not too little, enough leaves to feed, to stimulate the photosynthesis. So a good balance with the leaves, surface, and the number of grapes. Then a slowly maturing period, good temperature difference between the night and day, cool night, warm day. Never above 35, never above 37, because then we create blockage or maturation process. Just enough water to make the vine happy. Get smoothly and slowly into the maturity, the perfect maturity ripeness, where the acidity, the sugar, the aromatics, and the polyphenols are almost crossing each other. It's called maturity lines, but it's probably very technical. But imagine that the sugar going up, the acidity going down, and then they reach a point which is a perfect picking time. And that will create perfect wines. Fermentation, at the moment fermentation goes smoothly, easily, and straightforward, the wine will be beautiful.
So as you can tell from that long list, it's quite hard to have a good year. He's got a high bar, but
that's a perfect year. So nothing is perfect. So every year you have to fight for something.
Absolutely,
and that's our job. That's our job. That's what makes great vignerons. They know when to attend, because nature is beautiful. Nature is perfect. But when it comes to growing grapes, like agriculture, you cannot let nature do what it wants. You have to accompany them. Don't fight, don't force, don't accompany. Make sure it goes the right direction. And that's the beauty of being an agriculture, viticulture, or a vigneron.
Absolutely, and I think it's the difference between making beer or making a gin, where you can just create a new batch. With wine, you have 1 year is one chance, and
1 year, one
to
chance.
think about.
Yeah. But it's 1 year, one chance at any time, during the winemaking, during the pruning, during the protection of the vine, to make sure that you put a bit of protection against the diseases, but not too much. Plow at the right time, not too early, not too late. That's permanent. Timing is the essence in winemaking.
There are some more questions, but I'll let you perhaps talk about the red next, and then I know we've started unusually a bit with the wine straight away, but he will talk a bit more about the history of the winery and the vineyard and the family as well after this.
So the red, Languedoc. This was a breakthrough to be able to color a wine Languedoc, because France like diversity, like small clocher, as we say. Each village is different, and from one village to another, even if they're 5 kilometers apart, people call them foreigners. And that was a problem of the Languedoc. So we never had an appellation that will cover the whole of the Languedoc until we create Languedoc. So in the Languedoc, we can use grapes that come from the Corbière, from the Côte du Roussillon, from the Minervois, from the Grès de Montpellier, from the Pic Saint-Loup, from the Pézenas, from the Terrasse du Larzac. So we can blend, and we can create basically probably the perfect Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, now with a touch of Marsanne, which make it even GSM square. And that's what basically enabled to create a wine that, for me, the Languedoc is a very good expression. It's a very good expression of Mediterranean. The wine has to have some richness, softness, not too much acidity, and beautiful aromatics that are driven by the blend of the Syrah and the Grenache. the touch of Marsanne that we use today in some of the blends, and the Mourvèdre gives the complexity, gives the extra complexity. We can play a bit with the Carignan. So that's basically the way we work. Syrah, Grenache, and Mourvèdre being the core varietal of the blend. We get the Syrah. In the Languedoc, you get different Syrah, depending they come from. Syrah from the Roussillon, you will get Syrah that get this dry fig character. Syrah from the Minervois, there will be more dry herbs, Provence herbs, tapenade, even black olives. Syrah from here, where overlooking the sea, they will go much more towards blackcurrant. Syrah from the Limoux, they will go more to peppery, so that we can play with a Syrah blend already. The Grenache, obviously Grenache, typical soil for Grenache is this pebble soil, a bit like Châteauneuf-du-Pape. We have that in the Corbière, we have that in Terrasse de Larzac, we have a bit of that in the Côte du Roussillon. So we have different plots where we have this Grenache that makes a strawberry jam character Grenache with a touch of licorice, but quite well balanced. Obviously, they come with high alcohol, but that this viscosity gives the savoriness to the wine, you know, the gourmandise to the wine, the sweet fruit character without being sugary, you know, without sugar, the sweet fruit character, which for me is very different from sweetness from sugar. And obviously, by playing with aging in oak, playing with fermentation sometime on oak, give this wine that get a very nice and a very nice complexity. Obviously, the Grenache, I don't like it too much to be aged in oak, so this is what part of the blend is aged in vat, not only stainless steel, but a lot of cement vats too.
I've seen some hearts, so hopefully somebody out there is enjoying the red. Richard was asking, and I think this is an interesting question, Jean-Claude, because I know it's a problem. Well, it's not a problem, but a challenge for many winemakers in many places, is how to prevent alcohol levels from going too high. And I know that starts a lot further back in the vineyard as well, but how you try to avoid making the reds too alcoholic.
So we have two problems. People like sweet. Either you go to commercial wine that you have got 10 grams sugar, which is not my job, or you go to high alcohol wines. So at this point today, there is no possibility to make lower alcohol wine that are appealing. Low alcohol wine today, I don't know of any low alcohol wine that you get astringent wine when they are low alcohol, you get vegetal wines, you don't get expression. Level, as I explained, the maturity level has to reach a point where you have to pick at the right time. And the maturity point for Grenache is more like 14.5, 15. For Syrah, it's between 13.5 and 14.5. For the Carignan, it's more like 14, etc., etc. For Cabernet in our region, the maturity point 14.5. Merlot is like 14, so etc. So there is no issue unless you play, unless you play with the wine with mechanics, osmosis, and so on that de-alcoholize wine. But that's not neither my job, that's industrial job. So I make my wine, and they come from the winery. If tomorrow you want to have less alcohol in the wine, you have to do what I'm working on now. I'm working on new varieties, new age varieties, totally new age varieties that can give this sweet fruit at 12.5, but that's not yet achieved. Well, it's big research and development. I've been asking for that for about 15 years, and now I'm getting involved into a very serious project based on the bouquet varietal, on the bouquet new age varietals, to develop this type of wine. So I'm not sure this will answer properly what you expect, but if you want to have a nice wine, it has alcohol, okay? Part of the game.
Yeah, I think Richard meant more how do you keep freshness when you have that challenge that you are going
that's
to
different.
Yeah.
That's different. That's different. It's what I say earlier. I pick at the cross of the best maturities, you know, when the sugar, If you don't have any maturity blockage, and that obviously is a work in the vineyard, you don't want the vine to shut down, go to crazy in sugar, and then lose everything. That's what you don't want, but that's a vigneron job. You have to plow your vineyard, you have to, if you can, bring water. If you cannot, you have to make sure there are not too many vines per hectare, there is not too much competition. You have to make sure the trellising, the trellising is well adapted, low, high. This is a vigneron job. And you have, the only way to prevent from having wines that are heavy and too alcoholic is to reach a smooth and even maturity through the whole process.
Thank you. Hope that helped, Richard.
And ploughing today is one of the best tricks. When you don't have water, ploughing is important. You have to plough to refresh the vineyard.
Ploughing, yeah. One more question on that's probably relevant to the red. I know there's a few more. I will come back to you. Don't worry, I haven't missed you. Jean-Claude, in your opinion, which is the best? Is it Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre or Grenache Syrah Carignan as a blend? Sanso, sorry.
I would say, sorry, there are mosquitoes. We're invaded by mosquitoes. So I would say both of them are very good. And it all depends on the last element, Mourvèdre. Mourvèdre is very tricky to grow, very tricky to get a very good Mourvèdre. Carignan, obviously, to get a very good Carignan is a challenge. There is no good Carignan for young vines. So obviously, it will all depend. I'm going to do an answer which is not an answer. It will always depend where your Mourvèdre is planted or where your Carignan is planted. And the best will come from the best adequation because of, between the Mourvèdre and the Carignan. If you get a Carignan from the Corbière, from the Boutenac on the hillside there, you will make a beautiful Grenache Syrah Grenache Carignan. If you get a Mourvèdre from here there's a small hillside overlooking the sea. You do outstanding Mourvèdre, and you will get an outstanding Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre.
So maybe we have to have an irresistible Languedoc and an irresistible Languedoc too, and people can decide.
Yeah,
maybe that's
GSC and your GSM.
Great. Well, I'll let you carry on with your talk, Jean-Claude. We have some more questions for you later.
So this Languedoc is produced from grapes that are kind of low yielding, about 40 hectoliters per hectare. In general, they can be old when it comes to the Mourvèdre or the Carignan or the Grenache, but the Syrah are not that old because Syrah today, after 35 years, they tend to go down. So the Syrah are between 10 and 30 years old. Grenache a bit older, Mourvèdre a bit older. Pruning, I favor Cordon Royal pruning because it creates more, it makes on the vine, we have more even distribution of the grapes. Density, we are low density, we are high density because, we are low density because we're in dry climate. So there is a competition for water. So we're about 4,500 vines, 5,000 vines per hectare. This Languedoc it's a mix of our estate from the Roussillon, Corbière, Minervois, and here the Pézenas, Grès de Montpellier appellation. What else to say? There are wines with a great potential. Food and wine, they like, lamb, they like typical Mediterranean meat, You can have a beautiful veal. We have veal here on the hillside that are very good. I will enjoy it with some beautiful raw ham. I would go for, if we go for a cheese, try it with Roquefort, it works. Not that many people know it, but it works with Roquefort. A stew, we have a bit of game here, like rabbit, but you don't eat rabbit in England. But some stew, white boar stew, it works also.
I think everyone's going to have to get more creative in their cooking with some of your ideas.
Yeah. For the stew, you have to do it properly. Huh? You have to first put the meat in the pan and sear it and then start the stew. And you can do it with many different meat. But here we have a lamb where a land where we eat a lot of lamb, you know, because a lot of meat comes from the Larzac, where we have sheep and not that many cows. Cows are a bit further north.
Great. I'll let you carry on because I'll try and save questions till a bit later because I know you've got some more slides to show, Jean-Claude.
Okay. A view of my different estate in the Languedoc. If you see Nîmes up there, that we have Rousseau-Saint-André, that's the Rhône, almost Châteauneuf-du-Pape. From there down to Perpignan, there are 250 kilometers. Then the width, if you go from Terramas, you see Terramas on the further left, further west to the sea, there are about 40 kilometers. So we have the mountains on the south, the Pyrenees Oriental. On the east, towards Nîmes, you have the Alpes, the Alps, and then the Massif Central in the north. Very important to know in the Languedoc, the wind effect. Wind effect, the wind from the west of the north are perfect. They cure all diseases. They are very dry, but are perfect for our region. They're a bit hard wind sometimes, but you know, I was born here, so when I don't hear the wind, I don't feel secure. I need the wind. I need to hear the wind. I don't like the wind from the south or from the sea. It means storms. So that's to give you an idea of this beautiful region with the different colors of the appellation, but that's an idea of the diversity of what we have in this area. Towards Limoux, toward the west, typical for white wine, very important for white wine. Sparkling wine, the first ever made sparkling wine, Limoux 1531. And then obviously the middle, the Corbière, the Cathar area, where until the 12th century, we had the monks growing grapes, but that after it disappeared because of the wars. Narbonne, the Narbonnaise, where we had a lot of Roman villas. They at the coming of our era in the year 10 or year 50, a lot of wine was supplied to Roma. Were supplying Roma. The legionary were settling there. They were offered land and they were producing wine. The beautiful story. If one day you have the chance to go to the museum there, you will discover something unique. Then toward Pézenas, this small lake on the right is the oyster beds, Étang de Thau, the house of the Picpoul de Pinet. That's where we grow oysters. Actually, the Romans established the oyster there, famous for oysters, obviously. And that part of our history. And then you go toward the Larzac, where we make our Roquefort cheese. And plenty of heritage in terms of, you know, probably the Cité de Carcassonne, but if you go towards where you see the name Terrasse du Larzac, you have the Couvertoirade. It's a Templar city, quite incredible. So I could, you know, it would be ages to talk about the terroir for the grapes and the terroir from the heritage, because it's a land full of history. And, you know, we were very happy making mass consumption wines until the 70s. Everybody was making his living and making quite a good living with making wine like that. But in the 70s, everything changed. Wine consumption became totally different. Wine consumption became a social game. You don't drink wine because you need it. You drink wine because you're socialized. And we had to adapt. We went to a major crisis, which are not yet emerging. But remember one thing, we have the tools to produce the most outstanding wine in the world, where we've been learning for the past 20, 30 years. And now our learning curve has improved. And you will see, and I mean, try this wine today, as long as this kind of very high value for money in a world where wine is still secondary. This is why it's very important to be able to pay a bottle of wine be 10 pounds if you want to enjoy it without thinking it's too expensive. But also the word of the wine to dream about is something, you know, to try to achieve. And wine that you buy for the history, and they bring you to a trip and give you great emotion when you drink them. What I always say in my region, when I make wine, I want it to be good for the palate, good for the stomach, and good for the mind. And that's the job of the wine, to make you happy with what you taste, what you feel in your body, and the way you make your brain and your soul feel. Because we make the wine the most natural way, obviously it's good for your stomach and for your soul too. Okay. So a beautiful view of the set. That is Grès de Montpellier vineyard. It's my vineyard in the Silene, where you see on this side the Mediterranean Sea. You see there is a small piece of land over there on the side towards you, Idietanto, behind the Mediterranean Sea. That's Nicole. That's what where I moved. The origin. That was the origin. Obviously, it was not that good. Originally, it was very different, but that's where I'm working. So it's not bad to work there for me and for my employees. But the wine is an experience. That the rural luxury embassy is Côte Mas, where you can eat, drink, do some horse riding, go in the vineyard to discover, taste olive oil. And that's part of our rural luxury. Impress your five senses with what you see, what you taste, what you hear, what you touch, because there are many crafts in the restaurant. A view of the windmill, that's a symbol of our Chateau Viognier in the Minervois. Probably you're familiar with the windmill of Alphonse Daudet, if you read some French literature in the Provence, but we have the same, you know, we have the same. A view of the town de Marseillette, where we grow, as I say, 18 different grape varieties. Where this lake, this was a salty lake, dried by the Italians in the 18th century. Incredible system of canals. It's 2,000 hectares in one plot. Incredible system of canals. They can flood the whole plot in 48 hours and dry it in 48 hours. We need to flood the vineyards because there is salt in the soil. So we need to dilute the saltiness of the soil, because too much salt in the soil will kill the vine, but just enough give sapidity to the wine. I call these vineyards my umami vineyards. That's where the grapes give this umami flavor, you know, which is a bit unique. A bit of food. One thing to remember, I mean, if you want, you know, some of you have probably went to Liguria. We have in Italy, they have outstanding vegetables. Probably went to Spain for fruits and so on. But if you want to eat cherries, which are incredible, we have the most outstanding cherries, the most outstanding peaches. You go to the the vineyard peaches. It's unique to here. They are the latest one to come. It's beautiful. Apricot from the Roussillon. I don't know if you ever tried an apricot from the street in the Roussillon. You will discover what an apricot is. It's outstanding. Then the fruit and vegetable, artichokes, leeks, salads, tomatoes. I mean, tomatoes or strawberries. You know, the worst thing in the world in this world is strawberry and tomatoes. We have lost a sense of what a real tomato tastes like. And strawberry, they have come back a bit, but a real strawberry, I mean, it's outstanding. I had some American a year ago coming here. They wanted to express the luxe rural. So I didn't want, you know, it was difficult for me. We're doing this tasting, and today I say, my God, I have to make them taste strawberries. Because the strawberries in America are a disaster. They're big, beautiful, totally tasteless. So I call my guy next door. I say, come quickly and bring me a few kilos of strawberries. He brought them in the next half hour in the cellar, and they tried to taste strawberry. I saw them. They were like kids. They never believed a strawberry tasted like that. So that's to give you what I call rural luxury. So obviously the oysters are beautiful. I have my special preparation. This is me cooking the oysters. That's me cooking some strawberries, but the oysters, I've cooked them. I have my broiled oyster preparation, which is a bit unique. A view of the Aero Valley here with the Côte Mas embassy there. What I like also is I like to be integrated in nature. From this picture, could you tell that in this cellar, I do almost 2 million bottles? You cannot tell. Everything is balanced with the surrounding, the trees, a bit underground, and you cannot tell that we're producing so much wine there because I want to leave the beauty, the beauty of our landscape as they are. Another view, but here we're in Limoux. You see totally, you feel cooler already by the picture. You feel cooler. It's less warm than the previous picture. So that's Limoux. Hillside, and we go toward the Pyrenees. So you can go skiing within basically 45 minutes from there. Picking grapes in Limoux, most of it is picked by hand. My family house that I refurbished for the past 20 years, it will be switched, it will be turned into a guest house, and we're working on it. It's built on the remaining probably of 8th century chateaus, remodeled in the 12th century, remodeled in the 16th century, remodeled in the 18th century. Next to it is a church from the 12th, 13th century. It's a beauty. The cellar where I'm now, in the back, that's what I inherited. That was my first cellar, but obviously I had to refurbish everything. And the person that did the painting of Paul Mas at the end is actually someone working in the vineyard. You know, she has talent of painter, so she played on painting different fresco in the different place of the property. Ah, so that's me and Eden. Yeah, that's my horse. That's my Brigitte Bardot of the horses. She's the Comtoise. She's a beautiful horse. We use it for some work in the vineyards, for also going around the vineyards, and taking people around the vineyards into a, how do you call that, a carriage. And in the weekend, I go riding with her. I love horses. Okay, working on the barrels, tasting the barrels. And back to wine, Silène, Esprit de Silène, Limoux Chardonnay. Limoux, obviously, there are two regions in the world, in France, where Chardonnay are beautiful, it's probably Burgundy, and Limoux. Difference between Burgundy and Limoux that I'm not as rich as a Burgundian. I make less money because they sell the wine much more expensive. So for the price of this bottle, you could, for 5 of this bottle, you could get a similar Burgundy. So this is a Chardonnay, hand-picked, fully pressed entire grapes, fully barrel fermented, fully malolactic, which makes, let's say, a Chardonnay like you can find it in the most beautiful region, most famous region in the world. It's a real great wine. And you know, Limoux appellation has suffered a bit from the Blanquette de Limoux history, you know, making sparkling wine from Mosaic. And Mosaic is like the Glara, it's more like the Prosecco. It has suffered a bit, but now we're getting some recognition by being recognized as probably among the best Chardonnay in the world today with a Chardonnay from Limoux. This is the 2022. 2022 was a good vintage. Enough water, not too hot. So we managed to create a rich, well-balanced with the right acidity and the right richness Chardonnay. For the barrel, I use small barrel, 225 liters, but I also use big vats, 5,000 liters. These 5,000 liters vat, I renew them every 5 years. And they give a hint of oak and give complexity to the wine. My game with oak is not to taste oak, is to create a symbiosis between the wine and the oak to make even more complexity. The oak add flavors like toast, like brioche, like vanilla, like slightly coffee notes. This one, I call it my creme brulee. It's caramel and creaminess. Creaminess from, obviously, the malolactic. You say malic comes from a dry apple, like a Granny Smith, from a green apple, like a Granny Smith. But lactic is like a yogurt. The lactic acid is what you have in yogurt. So this is why I say this one has got some creaminess.
Your question, Paul, as to are we still making it? And yes, we do still sell this wine. And I think Jean-Claude, you're just going to quickly mention the Picpoul that we also sell, as it would be a shame to not talk about Picpoul in the region. And then I know we've still got some questions. So if we quickly just explain the Picpoul, and then I'll bring you some of the questions, Jean-Claude, to answer.
Picpoul de Pinet, obviously the best grape with oysters, with shellfish, produced around here. Pinet is a small village here, where we get a Picpoul. The grape is called Picpoul, and we created an appellation called Picpoul de Pinet, make it more simple. And this is probably part of its success. This one is wine mineral with a minerality and high acidity. And it's basically what you had many years ago in UK, known as muscadet, but that's the same thing. Obviously, to make a good Picpoul, first you need to have the right vineyards again. You need to have the right rootstock, and that's very important, which I use is Faircal. Then you need to make sure that you have a good leaf surface, because we want to make a fresh wine, and the possibility to make a fresh wine is to have a very good trellising, very high trellising, and pick at not full maturity to get this freshness. A bit of aging release, important release to get some fat.
Super refreshing wine. Really recommend it if you haven't tried it. I believe Jean-Claude is it Picpoul comes from Occitan, from Lipstinger or some. It's about the acidity in the wine. The name, or so I've been told that it refers
exactly.
because it's got such a zingy acidity. So if you like a zippy wine, definitely recommend it. Right, I'll come to a couple of questions from the chat now, but just to say, if any of you do want to ask your question in person, you can put your hand up and Terry will unmute you and you can ask your question to Jean-Claude directly. But in the meantime, we had a question from Pauline, Jean-Claude, about maturing wine under screw cap. It'd be interesting as a winemaker to get your opinion on that.
Screw cap, beautiful. Nothing to say, it's perfect.
For maturing wine as well. Yep.
Maturing wine. Obviously, screw cap tend to be totally tight. Some wine, we need a bit of air for evolution, but if the wine is perfectly made, bottled at the right time, screw cap is the best. I have wine, entry-level wines, 15 years old wines under screw cap that are beautiful. When you open them, they need a bit of aeration because the wine has been very tight for many years. But the wine, when it's well made, it's perfect. Obviously, oxidation of wine through the cork enable the wine to balance itself, to be, to hide a bit of its defect. Screw cap doesn't leave any chance for defect. It emphasizes the defect. But when a wine is well made, it's obviously a cork. Obviously, will hide some defects. Yeah.
Great. We also have a question from Richard about the meaning of the embossing on the red bottle.
The red bottle. I created this bottle. Many of bottles are mine. As a sense of being cautious with ecology, we've made our bottle lighter. This has been a big challenge to create a bottle of that weight with an emboss. Also, the neck is special, and the emboss is. I'm not noble. I'm not a lord, but I discovered in my fireplace in the chateau in my family house this emblem, and I made it mine. I made it mine by changing the date. The initial date was 1664, and I put it 1892. That was my great-grandfather started to make wine. So that's the history of the emblem. But it's our bottle, it's our signature.
hopefully that answers that question. And we have a question as well from Sue about what you do with the presses. So obviously you press the wine and using that press, but what you do after.
The presses, there are two ways. You treat them and you put them back in the wine. You blend them 2, 3, 4, 5%, or I use them for lesser wines. Two ways. If the presses are good, I find them, not to have too much tannins, and I reintroduce them partly in the wine. If they're not that good, I use them for lesser wine, or I sell them. I get rid of them.
Great. Okay. And I have a question from Janice as to what temperature you like to drink white wine from. I know they say between 10 and 12 degrees, but you might.
Yeah, my white wine, I like them 12, not colder.
12, yeah.
Yeah, 12. I don't like too cold wine.
So you think of a fridge as more like 4, so actually.
Yeah, but if you put it in the fridge, you open it, leave it open, and let it warm up a bit,
Yeah.
But obviously, when they come at 10, 8, 10 from the fridge, when you put them in the glass quite fast, they get 1 or 2 degrees. Sometimes you have to get them cold to get the right temperature in the glass.
Great. I think I've just got one more question about, are you worried about climate change? It'd be really interesting to get your opinion.
No, it makes me more, if I start to worry about climate change, today we have so many things to worry about, more than climate change. So we're on the verge of a nervous breakdown, start to worry about everything. I think we talk too much about climatic change. I mean, we're making people too anxious. So that's my first comment I would do about climatic change. As I say, I'm working hard on new grape varieties, on newer planting. There are many things to worry about. The first thing I worry about is a vegetal material. We have gone into a very, very poor era in terms of rootstock and in terms of selection of nursery. They have been simplifying, and we get too much of the same thing, too much of clone selection. Today, when you plant a vineyard, you don't have a life expectancy more than 30 years. Impossible. So we have to rework that before talking about climatic change. Second thing, worrying about climatic change, there have been vineyards in North Africa where much cooler area. So before we get into this, into a problematic climatic condition not to grow vines, there will be many, many years. The climatic change, what caused the climatic change? I'm afraid there is a lot of is due probably to nature itself, Obviously, the human activity is interacting with it, but up to what point? Not sure. So climatic change means today, think differently, adapt, improve, be very careful with what you do to nature, and then probably we'll manage to adapt.
So a big answer to a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It is a big question. And I think we've got one hand up. So if you want to come off, you should be able to come off mute and ask a question.
Hi, Sarah, it's Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Hi, Jean-Claude. Thanks so much for everything tonight. I've really enjoyed it so far. I've noticed that the 3 co-op wines are all irresistible wines. And I know there's different kind of levels of different co-op wines in co-op stores. I was just wondering what makes a co-op wine like an irresistible wine?
I would say co-op has judged that I was irresistible. That's the way I put it. And probably they're irresistible because I like to say, this French word gourmand is not people like sweet things. It's people that like things with a lot of savoriness. And I think the savoriness of this wine make them irresistible. That's how I would describe it.
And I'd say that we try and choose wines that are either classics. We didn't have a irresistible Cabernet until this year, when it actually members asked us for one, because they said, why have you not got a Cabernet? Or wines that are unusual, have a bit of story, are a bit different, like the Marsanne, or just really good examples like the Viognier. And we think they're irresistible because they're excellent value and good examples of what they are. Have we got any more questions? I'm conscious we've overrun slightly. Does anybody else want to come off mute and ask a question on camera, or any more questions in the Q&A? I think I've covered them all, but apologies if I've missed any. Don't think so.
The time for drink now.
It's time for a drink. Yes, you can just enjoy it. We've got one hand up, I think, from Patricia. Yep, so Patricia, if you should be able to come off and answer your question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
That's good. Hello, Jean-Claude and Sarah. This has been absolutely wonderful. Talking about the Chardonnay, I had a bad experience with a Chardonnay that was told, oh, this was lovely many years ago, mature person I am. And now with what I've heard this evening, I'm going to give it a try and see if I can get myself back into position of, yes, if you get the right Chardonnay, produced in the right manner, everything else, fingers crossed, it's good. I'm going to enjoy it. Basic question, solo drinker, love it. Don't want to drink a whole bottle of wine, although it's tempting. Your wines, how best to store, the ones that you've been naming this evening, going from the white to the red. If I wish just to make it last whatever, I don't mean a full week, but you know, that glass of wine, you go, oh, that's a shame, you know.
So where you've had a glass.
I'd like to have it
yeah.
Tomorrow. I'm having fish. I'm going to have cheese or whatever.
You don't have to. You absolutely don't have to drink a whole bottle of wine in an evening.
No, I want it to be a pleasure.
No. To enjoy wine, I think you can have 2-3 glasses, but after it depends on the size of the glass, obviously. But no, it's yeah.
So do you just put it back in the fridge? Would I store it whether it's
yeah, you can keep them for 3 days. You can keep it for my wines, you can keep them for 3 days easy, the way they make easy. And they're probably even better after 1 day. So easy. So
just put the screw cap back on.
Screw back or the cork back on, put it in the fridge for the white, put it in a cooler area for the red, and that's fine.
And then when I bring it back out, I've obviously got to get the temperature right for me to enjoy it.
Yeah, temperature is important. Yeah. Temperature is important. But in England, you know, it's never so warm, so don't worry about it.
Well, I'm in Scotland. Scotland.
But don't worry. I mean, you can keep my wine for 3 days open. No worry. Okay. The way they're made, they withstand a bit of aeration. Yeah.
Lovely. This has been an absolute joy. Absolute. It's been education, actually. Yeah, how times have changed in wine.
Great. No, nice to hear, Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we're going to have to wrap up now because we're slightly over time. But just thank you very much for everyone that's joined. Just a reminder that the next event, I'm actually arriving and hot off a plane in Chile. We're going to be going to the winery there to try 3 Chilean reds. So that's on the 5th of July. So Terry has set the event up. It's live on our join in page. So feel free to join up and come and join us with our tasting over in Chile. So thank you very much, Jean-Claude. Thank you for your time this evening, for joining us from your cellar in France.
Cheers.
Sarah,
thank you. Yeah.
If we've got time, we do have one last question for Richard, who's got his hand up. So last one,
yes,
if that's okay, and then we'll wrap up. Sorry.
Yes, but before we completely wrap up, Terry, if you want to join the name of the winner who has won a bottle of each of the wines for this evening as well.
A minute ago, yes.
Yeah.
We've got Mrs. Diane Perez is the winner of the draw. So I'll pop that in the chat as well, and then Diane will drop you an email to let you know and just organise getting the wine to you. So I'll jump off now and I'll let Richard ask his question.
Great, and congratulations, Diane. Richard, so one final question.
Hello, I was just going to say on the question of sort of keeping wines for more than one evening, what I tend to do bottle of wine, I decant half it into half bottles or quarter bottles, screw caps, and screw.
Well,
What that means is that most.
yeah. You know, by doing that, you take, you know, just some technical thing. I'm going to try to be very, very fast. Wine is contains CO2. At the moment you serve wine, the CO2 exhaust, it leaves the wine. When you put the bottle back, the CO2 is still exhausting, but CO2 is always heavier than oxygen and then air. So it creates like a blanket on the wine. So just don't move it, put it back as it is. Because when you do your operations, you make the wine take a huge intake of oxygen, huge, much more than what it will take by staying standstill for 24 or 48 hours. You know, when we do that in our cellar, we add CO2 in all the environment so that the wine is never in contact with oxygen. So moving wine like that, pouring to other, is not good. It's not good. It's white wine. Red wine, a young red wine like my red wine, it won't affect it so much. But I won't recommend to do that. I won't recommend it. It doesn't need to be done this way. I mean, the wine, in one evening, you will have 1/3, 40% of the bottle being drunk. Next evening, you will have another third left. You have a third at the end. That might not last so long, but, you know, so a bottle 2/3 can age very well. I mean, can be kept for 2 or 3 days.
I agree, and I'm not supporting the sale of anything, but one thing I use at home is something called Vacuvan, which is just like a stopper that you put in and you pump it and it gets rid of all the air in your bottle. I see Jean-Claude doesn't agree with me on that either. But
Not sure of that.
takes...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sarah. I won't.
Yeah.
I'm not for that.
Not
Because
for that
it
either.
pumps
Okay.
the CO2 too.
See,
It
everyone
pumps
has
the
different
CO2.
answers.
Yeah, it pumps the CO2 too. It
Mm.
pumps the CO2. No, the best way, if you have a spray of nitrogen or some, that's it. And then you're sure it
Yeah.
works. So don't.
There you go. Or you just have more friends around and drink the whole bottle.
If it's a wine with age, it's a different story. But wines like that are 2-3 years old, don't worry. Don't worry at all.
Great. Okay, well, I think we really have to wrap up there. So thank you ever so much for everybody for attending this evening, and hopefully see you at the next one from Chile.
See you from.
Great.
Okay, I'll come with you in Chile. No, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Ciao.
Hi everyone, I'm going to leave the chat open for about another minute or two. So if you want to scroll up and get any links that we've posted about any of the product pages for the wines or any of the store listings or anything, or to book onto the next event on the 5th of July, all that's still in the chat. So I'll keep the call open for a couple of minutes in case you want to scroll up and copy and paste anything from it. Well, other than that, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. I say goodbye then.